I want to show you the proper way to install a blade on a clipper, because this is very important in the way it's going to cut, and also if properly installed, you will make less cuts on the animal's skin. Now remember, the comb is pointed before you ever put it on. We've already pointed it, so we're ready to put it on. These slots on the back of the comb is what bolts it on. In other words, it slides on like this. But before I put it on there, I want to show you the proper distance to slide it back. These are adjustment slots. Now, when I have the comb adjusted on the back with the bolts on the back of the clipper, I want to have about this much lead. Notice the distance which we have from the point of the cutter to the bevel. Notice the distance we have from the point of the cutter to the bevel. Now the bevel is the part of the comb that slopes down. In other words, starting right there. Notice that. You can see it from there. From there out is bevel. All right, now I must have about 1/8 of an inch from the bevel back to the point of the cutter. In other words, I would not want the cutter out like this. I want the cutter slid back to where it looks like this. The farther out we would have the cutter toward the end of the comb, the more likely we would be of getting a fold of skin up in between the teeth and actually cutting the animal. So we want to keep the cutter back. Actually, it's over 1/4 of an inch probably, or about 1/4 of an inch from the point of the comb, but at least 1/8 of an inch from the bevel. The point of the cutter, back 1/8 of an inch from the bevel. Now this is done by sliding the comb on the screws back here. All right, the first thing we do then, loosen up the tension so the fork is loose. The fork is the part that holds the top blade or the cutter. The comb is the bottom blade. So then we loosen the fork up, slide the comb on, and I know from putting on a bunch of them, it's going to look something like this. It actually looks like it would set down there, but we're going to raise it up with a new cutter, and it's going to look about like this. Notice the screwdriver I'm using. This is a shearer screwdriver. It's a very important tool, and this is the thing to use to put the blades on with. Okay, we temporarily tighten the screw. We raise the fork up, slide the cutter under. When we get this side in, get our thumb on it. When you get this side down in where it belongs, get your thumb on there. Hold it like this. Then we tighten the tension up just enough to feel it starting to get snug, to where the top blade does not fall off. Okay, we have it tightened up. Now, take the little end of your screwdriver, use the bottom slot on the right side. Turn the clipper upside down, use this slot, push in the fan, and this will make the cutter go across. When it gets across to one side and gets ready to start back, we stop and take a look. We want the cutter to come about even with the outside of the comb. So right away, I can see I may have to slide the comb over this way just a bit. So we loosen the screw, slip the comb a little bit, and then again temporarily tighten it. We take a look and we have it lined up about right for that side. So we need to check the other side out. Again, take the small end of your screwdriver. And this is how we turn it, by pushing in the fan. And when it gets to one side, gets ready to go back, I take a look and it's looking about right. So at this point, we take the big end of the screwdriver and tighten the opposite screw first, from the first one you had tightened. And when I say tighten it, I mean really cinch it down. You have to have a screwdriver that you can get a good grip on, because if you don't get the blades tight enough, they will fall off as you're shearing and probably break the blades, or else maybe break the head of your clipper. Okay, after I have it bolted down, I like to make one final check to make sure that I have the cutter completely in. If you do not have these little tits down in the outside holes of the cutter, and notice the little holes up on the points, the little tit right under here on this yoke has to fit down in there. If perhaps I didn't have it completely down, and I turn the clipper on, it's going to throw the blade off. At that time, it'll probably break the comb or break the fork or break the head. So before I turn it on, I want to check it again and make sure I have everything set up the way it should be. Remember the lead, in other words, the distance from the point of the cutter out to the bevel or the point of the cutter to the comb. This is the way I feel like it should be set.